Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted and privileged to introduce Shri Piyush Goyal, who on account of the elections which are being held in Delhi tomorrow, was not able to be part of the inaugural session yesterday. But he's been very kind and offered his time and his wisdom to speak to you in this brief special session that we have put together. Shri Goyal is a brilliant student, scholar, has been so throughout his scholastic career. I have had the privilege of being a member of a body that he was also a member of, which was for linking of the rivers in this country. He's been on the board of India's largest commercial bank, the State Bank of India, as well as the Bank of Baroda. And he's been in leadership programs at Yale University, at Oxford, at Princeton, and is heavily involved in the alumni activities of the Harvard Business School. And he's been a bright star on the political horizon and was mentored by one of the greatest prime ministers that we've had in this country, Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And he comes from a family of leaders, of social workers, and I'm really delighted to have him here now. I referred to him a few minutes ago as the energy czar of India, because the Prime Minister has had the sagacity and wisdom to see that the energy portfolios of power, coal, new and renewable energy are under Shri Goyal's charge. Earlier, these were fragmented and they functioned in silos, but he's brought these silos together. So without further ado, Shri Piyush Goyal, Honorable Minister for all these different portfolios.
We have a very distinguished set of participants in this conference. I just had the privilege to meet several ministers, several former prime ministers, and frankly, it's only Dr. Pachauri who can put together such a distinguished gathering of eminent and concerned world citizens. And I must compliment you, Doctor, for this excellent initiative to have a sustainable development summit to bring to fore the challenges before the world and the imperatives of taking this subject very seriously, taking it forward to the next level. India, for one, is a country which, over the years, and in that sense, the New and Renewable Energy Ministry was started some 32 years ago. And India as a nation has always looked at energy conservation, newer forms of energy, innovative forms of energy, and a serious respect for the environment, both as intrinsic to policy in India. If one was to go back to tradition, to the old Indian way of living, one will observe that several traditional practices had an element of respect for the forests, had an element of concern for the quality of air that we have around us, had an element of reusing whatever is the output or whatever is the waste from any source. It could be even the waste of sanitation. It could be the waste that is generated out of foodstuff. And India traditionally has maintained that there is no waste in our life. Everything can be reused, everything has a purpose, everything can be taken to its next level of consumption. And in that sense, I'm very glad that the world today recognizes the importance of recycling, recognizes the importance of leaving behind a better climate for the next generation. And deliberations such as the one you've had over the last 2 days and will continue tomorrow will only help us fine-tune ideas, bring to the fore new concepts, new theories, possibly solutions to this big challenge that is before the world. In one sense, India very often has had this dilemma of balancing its development imperative with concern for the environment. We clearly need to have more electricity, more energy. We clearly need to expand our infrastructure, improve the lifestyles of people, and a lot of this will revolve around larger consumption of electricity. It's a reality we cannot do away with. But the other reality is that India's contribution, while it may seem large on an absolute basis to the pollution that we have or to the environmental degradation or the climate change, the carbon dioxide emissions that we talk about, on a per capita basis is 1/11th of what large parts of the Western world does. If we look at our coal consumption, which also happens to be under me, India consumes the same amount of coal on a per capita basis as the United States consumed in 1860. That's 150 years ago, when the United States was consuming half a ton of coal per capita, is the level at which India is today. So certainly, India cannot take the responsibility for what has happened to the environment, what has happened to the large amount of pollution we have all around us, as a responsibility of India alone. But our basic thinking, our understanding of the importance of environment leads us towards seeing how we can increasingly use renewable energy sources, what we can do to reduce the carbon footprint, what we can do towards energy conservation. And in that sense, while Prime Minister Modi and President Barack Obama were addressing the press very recently, this question was asked of Prime Minister Modi, under what pressure are you doing your renewable energy program? And Prime Minister very categorically and very correctly mentioned that for us, there is absolutely no pressure or force because of which we are doing renewable energy. It's the pressure of leaving behind a clean future for the next generation. It's the pressure of our own consciousness. It's the pressure of our own deep desire towards a better environment for the people to live in that prompts us to redefine something like the solar mission, which had planned to add 20,000 megawatts in India by 2022. The pressure which is internal to us, the pressure which we believe we have as a conscious citizen, as a conscious world citizen, which makes us redefine that 20,000 megawatt to 100,000 megawatt by 2022. It's our own deep commitment, it's in the DNA of this government that we should look at expanding the horizons of clean energy, renewable energy, to such an extent that India, which today has only 6% share of renewable energy when it comes to the actual energy consumed, we are wishing to take it up to 15%. And mind you, this is on a base which is twice the existing consumption of electricity. So effectively, India, which is consuming 1 trillion units of electricity, of which 60 billion units comes from renewable, is planning to double its energy consumption to 2 trillion, have 15% of energy come out of renewable sources, which would translate to about 300 billion units. And in the process, we are looking at a 5x growth in the next 5 to 6 years in our renewable energy production and output. And that is what is the paradigm shift in thinking. That is what spurs us to think big, think to scale, think to speed, to make sure that this program is executed well, is executed fast. And all of this is backed up with a very concrete agenda, a very concrete plan of action. So we are very clear that how much of this will come through the rooftop program, which we are accelerating in the next few days. We have about 40,000 megawatt, which we have identified as the immediate potential through the rooftop program. We are setting up solar parks all across the country, which will add about 20,000 megawatts from the solar parks alone. And these will be concentrated and plug-and-play systems within a park where land and evacuation and all those concerns will be taken care of, and one can go and set up his solar plant there. We are looking at uneducated, unemployed youth, setting up off-grid and microgrid solutions for the remote parts of India. And we are trying to create a robust and bankable framework to make all of this financeable, to encourage banks to finance this kind of initiatives and to ensure their long-term viability. Similarly, on the wind, we have redefined the original targets and now hope to take up our wind installations from the current 22,000 to 60,000 megawatts. That's another paradigm shift in the way the wind industry has worked. It's usually had a 3,000-4,000 megawatt accretion every year. In fact, the last 2 years, 2.5 years before we came into government, the growth had dwindled to about 1,700 megawatt per year on the back of withdrawal of some fiscal incentives. And all of this leads us to believe that given the sincerity of purpose with which we have planned out our entire renewable energy program, I'm very confident of achieving these targets. The government stands committed to ensure not only a clean environment, but also the energy security of the people of India, which can only happen when we move out of oil and petroleum products into more and more of renewable products, wherever it comes to tapping the energy sources within the country. And in that sense, breaking the silos which have typically held back this kind of ambitious targets, the Honorable Prime Minister has certainly brought these ministries together, but he has also ensured that all organs of the government, the bureaucracy, the political establishments across different ministries, whether it's the Ministry on Environment and Climate Change, led by my esteemed colleague Prakash Javadekar, who was with you yesterday, or the Ministry of Railways, headed by Suresh Prabhu, which is going in for a massive program for encouraging rooftop on all the railway stations across the country. Or if it's the Urban Development Ministry, which is stipulating more stringent building codes to ensure both the conservation of electricity through better building design and the generation of renewable energy through rooftops or maybe wind turbines on the roof. All of us are working in tandem as a team, supporting each other's endeavors and efforts to make this vision a reality, to make India the global hub and the world's capital on renewable energy, and take this mission forward into the next generation with an ultimate objective to make India a truly green country, a country committed towards the environment, a country committed towards and conscious of its responsibility in the Committee of Nations to leave behind a better place to live in. We also have embarked on a very massive program, initially on LEDs, to replace all LEDs in the street lights all across the country, and the traditional incandescent bulbs with LED lights, both of which we are rolling out in the next 2 or 3 years, which will probably be the fastest rollout to convert from traditional sources of energy or lighting to LEDs anywhere in the world. Coupled with that, at the next stage, we are taking up air conditioning and fans. And simultaneously, we are working with industry to see if we can get the industrial consumption of electricity, where personally I believe there's a clear potential, Dr. Saab, of about 20 to 25% saving, only through more efficient use of energy, better turbines, better generators, better powering machines for the equipment. We believe that India can easily look at a saving of about $10 billion. And in terms of electricity, maybe about 300 billion units of electricity. Should we get the support and encouragement of all of you? Should we get the participation of the people of India, of industry, of local bodies, state governments? I'm fairly conscious and confident of a target like 300 billion units being achieved in the next 5 or 6 years on an annualized basis. Also leading to a significant saving both in our import bill, in the amount of carbon dioxide that we give out into the environment, and also bringing that consciousness in the youth of India about their own responsibility to the environment. In fact, on World Energy Conservation Day on 14 December, I'd had a very lively and interesting interaction with students from all across India. There were students from the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, from Lakshadweep, from Sikkim, from Tripura, all across the country. And I found the consciousness amongst the children towards energy conservation to be fascinating. And the ideas that they shared with me were truly brilliant. I believe the next generation, thanks to efforts of very illustrious leaders like Dr. R.K. Pachauri, Terry, which he has led to glorious heights as an indisputed leader of climate change in the world, and programs such as the one you've held today, sir, certainly help to build up the awareness for energy conservation, for climate change, for improvements in environment protection. And I would like to compliment all of you for the serious deliberations that you have had. I would urge Professor Pachauri to share with us what are the deliberations and findings that this conference throws up for us as policymakers to implement, to make sure are actually actionated on the ground. And I assure you, sir, of our commitment not only to make renewable energy a grand success, but to save and protect the environment of India, to ensure that the rivers are kept clean, the rivers run perennially. Our commitment to ensure that ecological damage, if it is happening anywhere in the country, is not allowed to happen, and proper environmental impact assessments are done while we are setting up projects. All in all, I believe we can balance the development imperatives and concerns for the environment very comfortably, given the support and cooperation of people of India. And I assure the distinguished gathering here, this government stands committed to a better tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are behind time, but I think it would be quite in order and perhaps appropriate to allow maybe 2 questions, which I would request you to articulate. Please announce your identity and make the questions that you ask very short and focused.
As far as renewal concerned, we are expecting clarity in policy. Second, regarding the REC, it was not properly sold, so now you have taken step to dilute that. But the RPO compliance will be once in a year. So no business or no discount will try to buy monthly or quarterly. That could be initiated to like advance tax. Every month there should be buy for their compliance.
That's a brilliant suggestion, Dr. Pachauri. I like that. I've never thought of it in that sense that it should be monitored on a monthly basis. I think I like the suggestion. But at the macro level, in the new Electricity Act that we have sought to amend and is before Parliament, introduced by me in December, I would believe it should become law by April. We are bringing in more stringent penalties for not meeting RPO obligations, we are introducing a new concept called Renewable Generation Obligation, RGOs. The idea being that all those who generate electricity through thermal power should have an obligation to also supplement it with renewable energy. We are introducing that concept also. And lastly, I'm trying more and more to bring in policy framework which is not dependent on government SOPs. I'm trying to move away from a subsidy-based regime which has its own limitations when you try to scale up, to a regime which makes this whole business of solar energy, business of renewable energy, stand on its own feet, become viable, achieve grid parity at the fastest possible time. And if at all any support is required, it is more support in terms of bankability of agreements, lower financing costs, assured offtake, so that there is a must-run status, a long duration of power purchase agreements to give stability of policy, as you rightly said, and ensure that life cycle returns make the project viable. But I like the idea of the monthly monitoring. We'll look at that also.
Thank you.
I'm going to be unconventional. Lord Prescott is here, former Deputy Prime Minister of the UK, and he's been a great supporter of renewable energy. Maybe I'll request him to ask a question.
It's very exciting. I've met the other environment ministers. I've been involved in this since Kyoto. And I must say, the position of India is now more of a major player, not only in the international, but in what you're doing. You are a doer as well as a talker. I like the concept of the monitoring, which was talked of here. But I hope you feel strongly also that in the promises that are made internationally in coming to Paris, do you still accept there should be a monitoring process to see that governments are carrying out what they promise?
Lord Prescott, I think you raised a very valid point. Historically, a lot of people have had these concerns about politicians in India talking a lot and not delivering results. Fortunately, I have a Prime Minister to whom I report who has an excellent track record. When solar power came to India, he moved the needle faster than anybody else. So you have the largest solar installations today in his state where he was Chief Minister, a place called Charanka. He was the one who initiated massive research and development and innovation towards renewable energy. In fact, when Vice President Al Gore came out with his thesis reflecting on the inconvenient truth and highlighting the concerns of inconvenient truth, Prime Minister Modi, in his characteristic style, brought out convenient action. Because he's always been an action-oriented person, doesn't only necessarily flag off the problem, comes up with a solution. And I'll give you two examples, two conversations with him which will reflect his thinking. On one occasion, ladies and gentlemen, and it's very interesting, it gives you an insightful look into the Prime Minister's mind and why I believe renewable energy will be a success under Prime Minister Modi. We were talking, the three secretaries of power, coal and renewable energy. We were all talking through a review meeting of what's happening in the energy sector, particularly when this government stands committed to give 24/7 affordable power to the people of India. In the course of one conversation, a point was made that this particular action will cost a government company a loss of some $500 million. And this point was sought to be articulated and stressed upon to prove a point that a particular policy should not be followed. To which the Honorable Prime Minister turned to me and asked, he said it in Hindi. I'll say it in Hindi, but I'll certainly translate it for your benefit. But why I'm saying it in our local language is only to give the sense of his anguish when he said it to me. And ladies and gentlemen, he said, कब तक हम इस देश में एक डिपार्टमेंट या एक कंपनी के प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस को देखते रहेंगे? कभी किसी ने इस देश के प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस का अकाउंट बनाया है क्या? Sir, what he said was, till when are we as a nation going to look at the profit and loss account of a particular company or a particular department of the government? Has anybody ever sought to make the profit and loss account of our nation? And in that sense is a hidden message, is a hidden signal, is a hidden instruction to me that when it comes to renewable energy, when it comes to my responsibility towards climate change, when it comes to the fact that I am a custodian of this nation and the work that is happening in this nation for the next generation sitting there, and to leave behind a better place to live in for them, then I have to be conscious of what I am doing to the nation's wealth, to the nation's future. And in that sense, that for me was a defining moment for my own work, for how I should be looking at my own work. And a second instance happened barely 6 or 7 days ago. I was just spending time with him to debrief him on the deliberations we had at Davos. And clearly, Davos this time around was largely about the renewable story and sustainability. The main theme of Davos this time around was energy, sustainable energy, and climate change. And in that sense, it was a great learning experience for me too. And while I was, and of course, India was the flavor of Davos. I can tell all the ladies and gentlemen here, this Davos was all about what's happening and what's going to happen in India. But sir, when I was giving the debrief on what deliberations took place, on a particular point, I was flagging off that the energy conservation program, the street light replacement and incandescent bulb replacement program by LED, was very well appreciated in various fora at Davos. At that point, he immediately switched to me and asked me, what is the progress of the program we had launched on 5th January? It's barely 3 weeks since that program had been launched when we met. Within that 3 weeks, we are in the process of taking the program to the people, tendering, having reverse bidding process to purchase all these equipment. All of those processes are going on. But his immediate question was, what's the latest status? How many people have registered? How many lights have been replaced? What's happening in Mumbai where you launched it? What's happening in Delhi? And I was a little taken aback because I didn't have information real time till the previous day. The last review I had taken was probably 8 or 10 days before that. And he said, no program is going to be successful unless you monitor it regularly and you hold people accountable for what's happening. And then we got into the Jan Dhan Yojana, the financial inclusion program that the government has just recently concluded, which to my mind is probably the world's single largest exercise of this nature, where Indian bankers went to the doorstep of the poor and deprived sections of society and gave a bank account coupled with a debit card, coupled with a free life insurance, coupled with an accident insurance policy to 115 million homes. 115 million homes in less than 4 months in the length and breadth of the country. In fact, that program was lauded by the Queen Maxima of Netherlands, by the World Bank President Dr. Kim. In fact, when I was highlighting our process, how we did it, Dr. Kim actually told me, I'm a big fan of your Prime Minister after this program and the success of this program. It only reflects, and the Prime Minister shared with me, he said, this didn't happen just on its own. I said, yes, I remember in the cabinet we used to have a discussion on this every week. He said, cabinet was reporting. I was monitoring it on a daily basis. And that is how the success to reach out to 99% of the homes in the whole country. And you will be amazed, a city like Delhi had 2 million accounts, 2 million homes which didn't have a bank account. 1.946 million accounts have been opened in a city like in a state of Delhi, which itself was a shocking news for all of us policymakers and government, that after 67 years of gaining independence, our national capital had 2 million homes without a bank account. So really the tasks ahead of us are colossal, but we are conscious of these challenges and we believe that this is a great opportunity for India to come out of the past and look for a glorious future. I assure you, each of these targets, I will personally stand accountable for it and we shall make it happen. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure what you've heard is very inspiring, it's very encouraging, and I think all of us as Indians feel extremely hopeful of the future. We feel very proud of the initiatives that this government has taken, and it's also very reassuring to see that these are not mere empty promises. They're going to be implemented. I'm also happy to learn that this very modest effort on our part, the Delhi Sustainable Development Summit, which has been focusing on what the world and what we should do over the next 25 years, and the theme of this has finally been picked up by Davos. So I would request all of you to please make sure that this particular event gets the kind of attention that perhaps Davos gets, and I promise you much better weather, okay? So to end this session, may I request you once again to give a big hand to our Honorable Minister, who has been, who as you can see, has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Privileged to be with you.
Thank you.